Hey guys, welcome back to Team 6K. This is Undead bringing you Dark Magician. I know it's a bit late, but I did not have 3 Eternal Soul. I just wanted to be able to test at all ratios, just, so I could find what was truly optimal, so I wouldn't be half-assing it for you guys. But yeah, let's get into it. So essentially, if you're unaware, the strategy of Dark Magician is to set up Circle, and then one of these traps. Navigation, or Eternal Soul. Both of them will let you special summon a Dark Magician, because the traps, they can be used on your opponent's turn. So we're going to use the Circle effect, that when his Dark Magician is normal special summoned, I target and banish one of my opponent's cards. In order to get that whole combo set up of Circle and a trap, we have a whole bunch of consistency cards in here. Circle itself is actually a consistency card, because when you activate it, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and if you find a Dark Magician or a spell or trap that mentions Dark Magician, you get it to add it to your hand, and then the remaining cards you stack them on top of the deck in any order. It's also nice for consistency. We do have the 1 copy of Magician's Rod. I will explain this ratio in a second, but essentially on normal summon you get to search for a spell trap that mentions Dark Magician, so you can search your Circle or your Nav or your Eternal Soul. Of course, we also have a spellbook engine of Blue Boy, which searches a spellbook spell, Secrets, which searches a spellbook card, and then Knowledge, which tributes a spellcaster or a spellbook to draw 2 cards. So the play is either have this or this, right? Use one of them to search for the other one, and then that second card you search is going to search for this. Then you will use this to tribute this to draw 2 cards. So that's a +1, pretty nice. You have the normal summon options of this or this, both are going to result for you a +1. The last consistency card is Apprentice Illusion Magician. You get to special summon this by discarding any card from your hand, and then on special or normal summon you get to search for a Dark Magician. So into the actual win condition of the deck, right? Magician Navigation. This is the first one you're trying to your hand and on the field, because it has the nifty grave effect of banishing it if you control a Dark Magician to negate your opponent's spell or trap card any turn other than the turn it was set. And the reason, that's pretty much the reason we try to get to it before the other one, because the other one, if it's removed from the field, it destroys all your monsters. So that whole downside is why we're trying to protect this with the negation effect of navigation. So that is the whole ratio thing. That's why we play 2 navigation, so that we can get those negates off, of course, and the 1 rod, which is nice because it actually can be summoned from the navigation. It won't get its effect, but it can be. Because what navigation does is, if you have a Dark Magician in your hand, you get to special summon it from your hand, and then another level 7 Dark Spellcaster, level 7 or lower Dark Spellcaster from your deck. So you could summon this to search for another Dark Magician. You could search this to prevent your opponent from banishing from both players' graves. And you could summon another Dark Magician if you felt like it. You could also just summon the Rod for no effect, just so that you could get it in rotation, because Rod actually does have another effect. It's okay if you don't use the normal summon effect, because in grave during the opponent's turn, if you use a spell trap, you get to tribute one of your spellcasters to add it back to your hand, so the next turn you get to normal summon it and search again. So the way I originally built this, I had 3 navigation and 3 Eternal Soul, because I wanted to see how having maximum consistency in regards to having the ability to summon Dark Magician from that hand during your opponent's turn was. With my testing, I found that it was just too much. I had too much of the traps, which is great if you're going first, right? If you're going first, cool, man, you've got your traps, you're summoning that Dark Magician. But what if you go second? If you go second in the mirror match, Dark Magician is famously bad for losing if they go second against another Dark Magician player. So because of that, I felt like MST was going to be helpful. I did look at other going second options, but I felt that MST was going to be the most versatile, because it's also good going first against Dark Magicians, because you can destroy their Circle, therefore getting rid of their banish and their ability to look at the top 3 cards. I went to the deck and considered what I might be able to cut for it. Of course, I do have an overabundance of traps in the old version, right, that I was testing. So it felt easy to just cut 3 out. But I could also put in a rod, considering I'm only going to have 3 traps in anyway. Why not just have 2 navigation and 1 soul, for the reason I mentioned earlier. Play the 1 rod, since we do happen to be playing 2 nav. Rod is technically not mandatory, but it's nice to have, isn't it? I've been playing it for a long time without the rod, because it has been limited to 3, and I preferred to have the 3 navigation, but having it like this is nice now that we do have the Eternal Soul. So going second with a Mystical Space Typhoon is going to make things a lot easier. Of course, going first with a Mystical Space Typhoon is not bad at all either. And the amount of consistency that this deck has, we often find ourselves in situations where we both have navigation and soul anyway. And before I go to the extra deck, I might as well just say, technically this effect has not been relevant in terms of explaining all of the interactions in the deck, but it is a very important part of the deck's game plan. So Apprentice Illusion Magician from hand or field will be able to send itself to grave during the damage step to boost your Dark Spellcaster by 2000 attack. If you have this on the field, your opponent has to attack it instead of your Dark Magician, otherwise they're going to lose their monster. And if it's in your hand, then their opponent's going to lose their monster because they don't know that you have illusion in hand. Every monster that we keep on the field in this deck happens to be a Dark Spellcaster, that being Dark Magician, other illusions, Kaiku himself, and Magician's Rod. Kaiku, of course, takes even more advantage of this because when it does battle damage to the opponent, it gets to banish 2 of their monsters from the grave. So something that's kind of a big deal in this deck, I think, is we can actually clog up our own field pretty decently. And if we clog up our field, we can't actually activate the navigation, because the navigation actually needs you to have 2 open zones to actually activate it, because you must summon the Dark Magician from hand and the Dark Spellcaster from your deck. Playing link monsters, well, extra deck monsters in general, is going to be very helpful for you, because you might be able to summon 2 Apprentice Illusion, turn it into a bouncer, put it in the extra monster zone, so you have your zones open for your navigation to activate. But you know, that's a little bit of a optimistic thing to say, because we might not have 2 Illusion Magicians. We might have an Illusion Magician and a Kaiku, or Illusion Magician and a Rod. You can actually turn those into a Puzzle Amino, which just requires 2 monsters with different levels, which of course they would be. Essentially, if you cannot Xyz summon, you can link summon, so that will clear up your field a bit. What's also nice about Puzzle Amino is it is a spell caster. So if for some reason we have Magician's Rod in the graveyard, on the opponent's turn we use a spell or trap. So we use the Magician's Rod to tribute that Puzzle Amino to add the Rod back. So that's a little bit of a nice synergy there. Also, every now and then we're actually going to be able to summon Decode Talker. Often we will do this to clear up our own field, because if your opponent decides to use a card effect to target one of your cards, like they want to use MST to target your Eternal Soul to blow up your field, you can use Decode Talker to tribute a monster that it points to on your side of the field to negate that. Just having Imduk the World Chalice Dragon, what's great about this is it just requires any normal monster, doesn't care about the level. So we could use our Dark Magician to summon an Imduk in the extra monster zone. It has the effect that at damage step he is attacking something that he's pointing to, like he's pointing up. Let's say he's pointing to our opponent's monster. He gets to destroy that opponent's monster, which is kind of nice. The main reason though that we're using Imduk is that it essentially turns our Dark Magician into an effect monster, so that we can turn it into Decode Talker. You know what I mean? Because it does require effect monsters, and Dark Magician is not one of those. The last part of the extra deck is the rank 7 package. Of course, the most important one is Ebon Illusion Magician. It lets you detach material to summon a Dark Magician from your hand or deck. Also, when your spellcaster attacks, your normal spellcaster that is, you get to target a card on the field and banish it. So it's kind of like you getting a second Dark Magic Circle effect on top of the first time, where you summon it from hand or deck and get your circle to trigger anyway, so you're kind of banishing 2 cards on every generic rank 7. This one gets to target your opponent's monster and steal it. That's kind of like in a case where the opponent's monster is too difficult to deal with, so we might as well just steal it. And then Hierophant of Prophecy. If we happen to have used our Spellbook package to draw 2 cards, we can use this to blow up the opponent's back row. Eternal Soul can search for Dark Magic Attack or 1000 Knives. and I believe that this is adding a brick to your deck, so I shouldn't do it. I feel like Dark Magician is already bricky enough as it is because it has to play normal monsters, so why would I play more bricks? You know what I mean? Especially when, you know, the Circle's going to get rid of their back row, right? The Magician's going to get rid of their back row. The Navigation's going to negate their back row. And the Hierophant can get rid of their back row too. There are other versions of the deck that do focus on going first. There is a Temple of the Kings version. Temple of the Kings essentially lets you activate a trap the turn that it is set. It's a very powerful effect, to be sure, but the card isn't searchable and it will brick you in multiples. So you either play 3 and brick, play 2 and don't see it enough, play 1 and don't see it enough, and for me, I don't feel like that's worth it just to be able to activate a trap on my own turn to go for game. It's definitely cool. It's definitely a cool idea, but it's a bit more of a meme than a competitive idea. Guys, that's how the deck works. I was able to get a 10-game win streak in Legend, so let's get into the game. This particular hand is not very good. We don't want to see 2 circle at any point. We have the rod, but the rod's only going to be able to search navigation. We're just going to have to hope that the circle gives us a Dark Magician, but unfortunately for us, it whiffs. But we do have the MST, and our opponent is clearly playing Blackwings because they're playing Crow, so the MST is going to be able to essentially prevent that Black Whirlwind from going off. It's going to activate, we're going to MST it so he doesn't get a search. So he's just going to set up a little bit of protection for his field. Thankfully for us, we draw one of our many cards that would have saved us. If we had drawn a Dark Magician or a Apprentice Illusion or any of the Spellbook engine, we would have been good. And of course that is the majority of our remaining deck, so we're all good. So we're going to use the engine to draw 2 cards after thinning the deck by 2. And of course we do have the Illusion, which will give us the Dark Magician. Finally we can use our Navigation, summoning another Illusion from deck so we can search for another Dark Magician. I'm getting rid of his field spell so that if he gets another Whirlwind, he's not going to be able to benefit from his searches. Thankfully the second circle gives us a soul. I'm turning everything into a decode token because I'm planning on my opponent's turn to use soul to summon Dark Magician to this zone here. But he has Collude, which is I'm perfectly cool with, because now he's essentially in a top deck situation. I'm going to be able to use Circle to get rid of his monster in the battle phase. Rod Engrave is going to tribute my Dark Magician because he didn't turn his other things to attack mode, so my life points are going to be perfectly fine. I'm going to use Rod now, and at this point I don't have game, but I have overwhelming game, essentially. I don't have lethal, but I have game. So he shows that he essentially has nothing left. So I'm just going to be able to use Soul to summon my other Dark Magician and banish his thing. He's going to scoop it up. If you want a better Blackwing deck profile than this guy's clearly bad deck profile, then check out our channel. We've got a really good one. This hand is very good. We do have guaranteed access to everything. I'm going to use the Circle first because even if I whiff, I'm going to be able to use the Rod to search a trap and the Illusion to search for a Dark Magician. So we do have everything. Thankfully though, the Circle does give us a trap, so we're going to be able to use the Rod to get us the other trap. Very nice. And then we're going to use the Illusion Girl to search for a Dark Magician. And because we have too many monsters on the field, I'm going to turn them into a Puzzlemino. Set our back row. By the way, I tend to set my navigation in the middle because the middle is generally where people try to use their MSTs. Like, if they don't know what to hit, they generally hit what is in the middle because that's what DK told them to do. So because I set this in the middle, I can just activate it immediately and then not activate Circle and then use Soul's effect later. But yeah, he's going to be using Spellbooks, which is, you know, it's a fun deck to play, but it's a bit outdated, to be honest. He's going to summon his Blue Boy. I'm immediately going to flip up my navigation because his Fate cannot be activated if he does not control a Spellbook. So I'm going to use my Circle to get rid of his Prophecy. I also summon Kaiku so that he cannot banish his spells from the grave to activate his Fate. And Fate, of course, is the win condition of this deck. If he cannot activate it, then he can't do anything. So all of what he's doing is meaningless because he cannot use Fate. He's going to use Treacherous. It's absolutely fine by me. I'm just flexing at this point. There's nothing I actually need to do. I already have a game. Soul is going to resummon my Dark Magician. I'm just playing with him at this point. he scoops it up. So going against Galaxy Eyes, our circle is going to give us a Dark Magician. We're going to set our back row and he's going to go off. I'm cool with him doing what he needs to do because I'm planning to use my circle to banish his Galaxy Eyes. So he's going to summon his Galaxy Eyes. I'm going to use my navigation. I'm also going to summon this so I can get myself a follow-up play. This is probably the most common summon off of navigation is Illusion, because not only can they not safely attack Dark Magician, but I also get to thin my deck, which is important, and also have the Dark Magician in case I get another trap. But he's going to Book of Moon me so that I can't use the attack boost effect. I'm still going to get my search. Because his Galaxy Eyes is banished, his game is over. I'm going first. My hand is nothing special. I'm just essentially doing what the deck did before. He's playing Cyber Dragon, so I'm going to have to be careful in case he has some ability to play through what I'm doing. So I'm just going to let him play for a bit. He activates this, which, because he's activating this, is going to let him fusion summon using materials from the grave. So my plan with using this navigation is to summon Kaiku from the deck, which is going to prevent him from doing such a thing. So we just paid 2,000 life points essentially for nothing. Of course, I'm going to attempt to banish his card, because why shouldn't I? But he does have Flash Fusion, which is going to protect him, kind of, but my illusion's going to protect me. So all of that was for nothing. So our opponent's going first with a new variant of Blue Eyes that is using the skill that puts 2 cards from your hand into the deck and puts that level 5 Labyrinth defense monster, normal monster on the field, so that he can kind of use a tuner to go into the level 6 Synchro Red Wyvern. It's kind of a cool idea. Also, of course, get Stones Engraved. I don't think it's better than the standard Blue Eyes skill, but I do think it is a pretty cool idea. I'm just shouting that out while I'm here. But he does have the alternative, good for him. He's going to summon his spirit and his other spirit turn 1. My hand is pretty decent. I'm going to use Spellbook of Prophecy, get my Pot of Greed off. Circle is going to get me my Dark Magician. If I did not get the Dark Magician, my illusion would have given it to me. But I am not summoning my illusion because I'm planning to keep it in hand as a surprise for if he tries to crash into me. So he's going to summon his Blue Eyes White Dragon here. He goes into battle phase, and as soon as battle phase hits, I activate my navigation to summon 2 Dark Magicians from the deck. So I can use my circle. Of course, he does tribute this in response to me activating the navigation. However, because it is his turn, his Azure Eyes will have priority to activate first. So then my circle will chain to it on the new chain to banish his alternative. So making sure you know when to use your Spirit Dragon to tag out is important. He should have done it before going into battle phase. So Circle's going to banish that. He plans on attacking into this. We know he has a Blue Eyes White Dragon in hand, so I'm going to let him do it so that if he can tag out, he can attack into this guy and I can use this to boost it. But he reads during the attack that I'm just not activating my illusion. So he just lets it go through and then it goes to the end phase. So because of this, I'm able to use my Eternal Soul on end phase to resummon my Dark Magician. Because he sees that I'm a good player, he sees that I'm making the right choices, and he sees that I got rid of 2 of his monsters while losing nothing, and he lost something while trying to get rid of my field. That it's over. I've gotten too much card advantage. I can negate back row now. There's just too much on my side of the field. So we scoop. I do have the Spellbook engine. So something that's important to note here is that I'm using my Spellbook engine to thin the deck first, and then before I actually even activate the knowledge, I'm going to use both of my illusions first. I'm going to discard my Dark Magician because I'm going to get a Dark Magician anyway. And I'm going to discard the other Dark Magician because I'm still going to have a Dark Magician anyway. I'm going to be able to now, since I have thinned the deck of 2 Dark Magicians, there's no more Dark Magicians left in the deck. So this knowledge is guaranteed to not draw any Dark Magicians. So my knowledge is more likely to give me the plays and cards that I need. But I'm also going to be able to go into Bouncer to negate a monster effect on the field. So of course I do have the full combo. I have MST to get rid of their circle. I have a soul in whatever case needed. I negate his rod with my Bouncer. He sees I'm doing way too much and he surrenders. So this game was a part of my my 10-game win streak, so I'm showing it regardless. But my opponent bricked. And he's also playing Dark Magician. I just want to kind of show I bricked as well. So let's not kid ourselves here. But he bricked for multiple turns in a row because his Dark Magician deck is not very good, and you will see why in a second here. So his circle's going to get stopped by my MST. I'm going to be able to unbrick myself the turn immediately after because my deck is more consistent. Here he uses Duality. Duality is not a card that you should be playing in Dark Magician, and I see many people playing 1 copies, 2 copies, 3 copies of Duality in their Dark Magician deck, and here's why you shouldn't do that. Clearly this guy is bricking, right? It's because he does not have the accessibility to use the Illusion Magician to thin his deck, first of all. Second of all, always giving him great access to the Dark Magician, right? So instead of playing Pot of Duality, which turns off your ability to special summon, play Illusion Magician, because the deck already gives you everything you want. You don't need a Duality to turn off your Illusion Magician. Here he gets his Dark Magician, but it's not good enough for him. I'm just gonna on-end phase. How could he use Duality and still have nothing, man? We're gonna see soon. So I read that he has a DD Crow, so I'm just gonna summon Kaiku with my navigation. I'm gonna summon Kaiku, attack. He has Kyroid. This is another card that I see Dark Magician players playing way too much. This card does not help your game plan. It only delays the inevitable. You need to make sure your Dark Magician deck is fulfilling its condition as soon as possible. You cannot be playing these stall cards in Dark Magician. It's a great card in stally decks that can afford the room. Dark Magician actually cannot afford to cut down its consistency. He uses Destiny Draw, but it doesn't matter because I have a negate and an MST. I'm gonna negate it, right? Yeah, of course it doesn't matter. Even if I didn't negate it, I would have been able to use my illusion to get rid of his life points, right? So I'm going first here against Gaia. Shout out to this guy. Gaia is a very cool deck. I wish I was confident enough to play it. I'm going to be able to do the whole illusion combo, thin out the deck. All I can end on is a navigation circle and Bouncer, which is a very good field, but he does have the Book of Moon to turn off my Bouncer. So that is a little bit of a sour situation. But he's going to use his skill. Of course, he's going to have the full combo. But Gaia is famous for not being very good against back row. I'm just going to use my navigation. Summon Kaiku just in case he has BLS or something. I'm going to use Circle to get rid of this guy so he can't attack over my Bouncer. He has back row, but it's okay because I can just negate it. I'll just attack the game. I'm getting second here against Fluffals. You have to be very careful against Fluffals because they are very good at baiting out negation before they get their fusion playoff. So don't just fall for it, alright? Wait until the appropriate moment to interrupt. So I'm not going to have anything special here. I have 3 Dark Magician. It's not the greatest hand ever. But I'm just going to use Kaiku to make sure he can't use his grave effects. And then also get rid of the Toy Vendor because it is of course a very good card. I don't want him to get it in the grave. But yeah, I top deck into Illusion, which is fantastic for me. I'm planning to attack directly with Kaiku so I can banish materials from his grave so he can't use Fright for Fusion. He's going to use his skill. He's going to have direct access to his next copy of Toy Vendor and activate it, but I'm not going to negate it because I'm planning to negate Polymerization. Because he knows what I'm doing, he scoops. Alright, so this hand is actually fantastic. I'm gonna have access to, it's a bit iffy, alright, I'm not gonna lie. But the MST is actually much better than you might expect. Getting rid of the opponent's back row, getting rid of their play starters sometimes. But yeah, I'm gonna be able to use my circle to get my nav. Lucky me, I have a clogged field, so I summon Puzzlemino. They summon their Harpy. I just shotgun the navigation. He scoops because he knows he lost. So after all this time, Dark Magician is still an incredibly good deck. As you saw, a lot of people pretty much just lost the game as soon as my navigation circle combo resolved. But you know, it does take a little bit more than that against certain opponents, so it's good to know you know, what to do and when. If you have any questions about the deck, any concerns about the deck, if you have your own thoughts about how the deck should be played, then definitely leave them in the comments so we can have a discussion. I feel personally that this deck is way better than people give it credit for in the current format, because while Salamangreat is better in tournaments, I do feel like Dark Magician is better on ranked, especially this version that is teched specifically to go against the Dark Magician mirror match. But yeah, if you like the video, like the video. If you're new around here, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.